The effects of psychological and narcissistic abuse come with many devastating consequences, but there are two that almost no one knows about unless they're a doctor or neuroscientist. In fact, these two outcomes may be the most destructive result of emotional trauma over the long term, and is an added reason why if you have children with a narcissistic partner you should try to leave as soon as reasonably possible. By now, most of us know that repeated emotional trauma leads to both PTSD and CPTSD, which should be reason enough to leave an abusive partner. But what many people don't realize is that over time, these repeated emotional injuries shrink the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory and learning, while enlarging the amygdala, which houses primitive emotions such as fear, grief, guilt, envy, and shame. Hippocampus basics. The hippocampus, which is Greek for seahorse, is a paired structure tucked inside each temporal lobe and shaped, in fact, like a pair of seahorses. It helps to store and release memory. The hippocampus is especially vital to short-term memory, the retaining in mind of a piece of data for a few moments, after which it either gets transferred to permanent memory or is immediately forgotten. Learning depends on short-term memory. One further, among the many analyses that have been conducted, one in particular shows very disturbing results. In a study conducted by a team of the University of New Orleans and Stanford University researchers, patients with the highest baseline cortisol, a stress hormone, and greater number of PTSD symptoms had the greatest decreases in hippocampal volume over time. In other words, the longer you stay with an emotionally abusive partner, the more deterioration you can expect of your hippocampus. It can be easily understood how this neurological process may enhance feelings of confusion, cognitive dissonance, and abuse amnesia in victims of narcissistic and psychopathic abuse. Amygdala basics. Narcissists keep their victims in a constant state of anxiety and fear, which in turn causes their victims to react from his or her amygdala, a reptilian brain. The amygdala controls life functions such as breathing and heart rate and the basic emotions of love, hate, fear, and lust, all of which are considered primal emotions. It's also responsible for the fight-or-flight reaction. Victims of narcissistic abuse live in this state almost daily. Over time, the amygdala remember the things we felt, saw, and heard each time we had a painful experience. Subliminal hints of such stressful events, even photos, will set off the organs, attack or escape routines, triggering avoiding behaviors or internal turmoil. 3. Another good reason to refrain from stalking or X on social media. Even after the toxic relationship has ended, victims suffer PTSD, CPTSD, panic attacks, phobias, and more, due to the triggering of their primal fears by their overactive amygdalae. Out of these fears, targets of narcissistic abuse often engage in primitive defense mechanisms, including but not limited to denial. Victims use denial to escape dealing with painful feelings or areas of the life they don't want to admit. Compartmentalization. Victims pigeonhole the abusive aspects of the relationship in order to focus on the positive aspects. Projection. Victims project their traits of compassion, empathy, caring, and understanding onto their abuser, when in fact, narcissists and other emotional abusers possess none of those traits. Narcissistic abuse changes your brain. According to Goleman 2006, everything we learn, everything we read, everything we do, everything we understand, and everything we experience counts on the hippocampus to function correctly. The continual retention of memories demands a large amount of neuronal activity. In fact, the brain's production of new neurons and laying down connections to others takes place in the hippocampus. Goleman, 2006, p. 273. Goleman also stated, the hippocampus is especially vulnerable to ongoing emotional distress because of the damaging effects of cortisol. p. 273. When the body endures ongoing stress, cortisol affects the rate at which neurons are either added or subtracted from the hippocampus. This can have grave results on learning. When the neurons are attacked by cortisol, the hippocampus loses neurons and is reduced in size. In fact, duration of stress is almost as destructive as extreme stress. Goleman explained, cortisol stimulates the amygdala while it impairs the hippocampus, forcing our attention onto the emotions we feel, while restricting our ability to take in new information. pp. 273,274. Goleman adds, the neural highway for dysphoria 4 runs from the amygdala to the right side of the prefrontal cortex. As this circuitry activates, our thoughts fixate on what has triggered the distress. And as we become preoccupied, say, with worry or resentment, our mental agility sputters. Likewise, when we are sad, activity levels in the prefrontal cortex drop and we generate fewer thoughts. Extremes of anxiety and anger on the one hand and sadness on the other push brain activity beyond its zones of effectiveness. p. 268.5. But there is hope. There are reparative activities you can do to restore and rebuild your hippocampus and stop the hijacking of your psyche by your amygdala. What to do? Luckily, as brain scans have now shown, thanks to the magic of neuroplasticity, it is possible for the hippocampus to regrow. An effective method includes the use of EMDR therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. One recent study showed that 8 to 12 sessions of EMDR for patients with PTSD showed an average of a 6% increase in the volume of the hippocampi. 6. EMDR is also beneficial for counteracting the hyperarousal of the amygdala, allowing the brain to more appropriately direct what needs to happen rather than remain stuck and unnecessarily trigger problematic emotions. Other methods that have been shown to repair both the hippocampus and amygdala include guided meditation. Recent studies from Harvard University show that daily meditation can help repair the brain by actually rebuilding the brain's gray matter. Study participants who spent an average of 27 minutes per day practicing mindfulness exercises showed a major increase in the density of the hippocampus and amygdala and associated reductions in stress, compared to a control group. Aromatherapy and essential oils article. Aromatherapy and meditation: essential steps in recovering from narcissistic abuse. Performing acts of kindness, simple, daily practice of altruism can dramatically alter your outlook on the world. Emotional freedom technique helps correct the biochemical short-circuiting that occurs with chronic anxiety. Of course, the first course of action would be to plan and implement an exit strategy. It takes time to recover from narcissistic abuse, and one short encounter can set you back enormously. Resources: 1. Goleman, D. 1995, July 31. Severe trauma may damage the brain, as well as the psyche. Retrieved October 17, 2017, from http www.nighttimes.com. 19950801. Science: a severe trauma may damage the brain as well as their psyche. Whole page 1. Title 2. Stressing the hippocampus: Why it matters. N.D. Retrieved October 12, 2017, from http blogs.scientificamerican.com. News blogs: Stressing the hippocampus. Weitma 3. Thomas, East N.D. The Amygdala: Emotions. Retrieved October 17, 2017, from http www.effectivemindcontrol.com. Amygdala.html4. Dysphoria, 2015, November 29. In Wikipedia, the Free Encyclopedia. Retrieved 2036, October 18, 2017, from http://wikipedia.org. Index.pub. Title: Dysphoria. Aldid 692983709. Effects of stress on the hippocampus, 2013, March 19. Retrieved October 17, 2017, from http://dryalgrass.com. Academia. Effects of stress on the hippocampus. 6. Shapiro, F. 2012, Getting Past Your Past. Take Control of Your Life with Self-Help Techniques from EMDR Therapy. Mouse, Pa. Rodale Books.